What is going down, everyone? This is Jeff News Sports. I got the best vice president, one of the best podcasters in the business with me, Mo Murphy, tonight from Up in Flames. This super week. We are pumped. We're another 24 hours closer to the big game. I don't know what it is about this year, Mo. Something about this game just has me like energized. I don't know if it's because I don't have much stake in the game. I don't know if it's because maybe it's because of the Ohio team and the connections. I don't know what it is, but I'm really enjoying the build-up. I'm enjoying the side stories. I think it's because we have so many new players and so many players that haven't won a Super Bowl in this one. Maybe that's what it is, because whoever wins is just they're going to deserve it. They're going to be happy. They're going to be excited. It's going to be fun. We don't have to tear them down until next year. They get like 6 months before we shred them. We take
Before
them
the
across the
pressure
season.
comes preseason.
Yeah. Yeah, like, okay, is this the next, we know the narratives. Burrow wins. Is this the next dynasty? Can anybody beat Cincinnati for the next 30 years? Like, we know what it's going to be. Stafford wins. Like, can the Rams keep it together? Can they go back to back? Like, we know
In
all
Hall
that's going to
of
happen
Fame,
afterward.
as soon as he
Yeah.
wins, Hall of Fame talk starts. Like,
Oh, that first ballot bullshit
Monday
starts
morning,
up.
like, is he first ballot Hall of Famer?
Yep.
That's the first question Monday morning. They won't even talk about the Super Bowl. They'll talk about Matt Stafford going to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, so I know that was a hot opening. So this is Jeff Needs Sports. That's Up in Plays. We're both from the Off the Ball Network. This is our super week. Trying to put together a lot of fun stuff for you. Tonight's topic I came up with was the best all-time individual performances. And as always, Off the Ball Network, we give you our take on whatever the topic is. We don't just Google it and regurgitate it. Like, we give you like what we saw with our own eyes and feelings and stuff like that, because we feel that that's more genuine show. What I like to do. And I'm lucky enough that basically I'm just at this point, like, it feels like I remember every Super Bowl. So, my library of Super Bowl memories is huge. It's one of the few, like, I don't mind growing old, but it's one of the few great things about growing old is that, like, I seen Jerry Rice play. I've seen Montana play. I've seen Michael Jordan play, and remember it all. So I try to take advantage of that on this show. And then the young guys are like, yeah, but we can still walk upright. And I'm like, well, okay, you win. So young guys win. So anyway, tonight is best top 5 Super Bowl performances. But before we get to that, Mo, I got to ask you a question. Okay, so everybody knows we're High State guys.
Yeah,
it's something we do. We do a lot of Ohio State. I do the Buckeye Remix. We're both on, we both do the shows with Jay all the time on Locked In Buckeyes. We're both tuned in. We both love them. That is for some reason, we're talking Super Bowl week. We're a month from the college football playoffs. People can't keep Ohio State out of their mouth when they're talking about the Super Bowl, whether it's the Joe Burrow leave. So here's what I hear today. Peter King, one of the most respected, knowledgeable, most successful NFL writers of all time. Here's what he says on TV. He says, well, they were talking about Joe Burrow and the narrative, how basically he's the Bionic Man, I guess. Anyway, that's the whole thing. But then he says after Urban Meyer kicked him to the curb, he went to LSU and rebuilt himself and got in a better situation, has made the best of it. Now, okay. I don't remember Urban Meyer kicking Joe Burrow to the curb. He simply picked the quarterback that he chose. Burrow left as a grad transfer. That's how I remember it. I didn't like this. What's this obsession with Ohio State, even on Super Bowl week? I mean, we got all the Ohio State players in it, which is great. I really am, rooting for some of them. And it also makes me mad that that 2015 team failed like they did. That's a different conversation. But just like as an Ohio State fan, like, are you hearing the same thing that I am? I mean, obviously I'm geographically so much closer to the situation than you are.
Yeah, I mean, I pay attention to it in the social media, and then, I just happen to be a fan of, when it comes to NFL and college football, like, I happen to be a fan of the most talked about teams, most hated teams, most disrespected teams. However you want to look at it, well, I feel like we all can agree Ohio State has earned their respect. So, it's different than being a Cowboys fan, but it is like right now, Ohio State is one of the schools with the most players playing. And the argument is whether Ohio State should claim Joe Burrow or not. Like, is he an Ohio State player? But here's my thing. Joe Burrow has put that argument to rest where everybody shouldn't even have a conversation on it, because Joe Burrow has said out his mouth, I'm always a Buckeye. Like, I don't forget about that time. Ohio State made me I left, I transferred, but it wasn't a bad break. It wasn't he stayed there and fought like a dog. Like, and he said at the end of the day, I'm a Buckeye at heart. Like, yes, Louisiana and all the charisma and stuff that, when Joe Burrow
Yeah.
became Joe Burrow, but he's like, I'm a Buckeye. So therefore, it's like, why are we even arguing it then? Why
I have no idea.
talking about Ohio State? Like, oh, y'all can't claim him. Like, okay, well, I'll claim the 6 other players that are playing in the Super Bowl. Like,
Thank you.
perfectly fine. Like, okay, we don't have to, because if Joe Burrow wins the Super Bowl, we don't have to say an Ohio State quarterback wins the Super Bowl. I'm perfectly fine because them 5 other players on his roster were Ohio State players, did play on that national championship team, and stayed their whole career at Ohio State. So we can claim that those players won and root for those guys. So I just don't get why Ohio State does.
I don't either.
I can't believe they let him go. Who cares? Look, I mean, like, that was
it just won't stop. It just won't stop.
Who cares? Like, we went through Haskins, we went through Justin Fields, we went through CJ Stroud. Like, I don't even care about that quarterback battle, but that's going to be brought up because Haskins is a bust and Joe Burrow is playing in the Super Bowl. Yeah, so that's going to be brought up. That's the story of his career. And he doesn't even care about it. I don't even think he thinks about it.
No, at all. I mean, it's just not a thing. And my last word on it is too, and I told my wife this because, again, I know everybody's heard me say this many times. We literally played against Joe Burrow in high school. So like we've seen this kid's career since he was a junior in high school. So like we're an hour away from where he grew up, blah, 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 blah. My point is, like, when they talk about the mistake that Ohio State made letting him go or kicking him to the curb or whatever. Well, I don't remember people outside of, Ohio State. We're talking they were at the time they recruited Joe Burrow, one of the best teams in college football. And they recruit him. I don't remember LSU knocking down his door. I don't remember Alabama. So like maybe let's give Ohio State some credit for when Urban Meyer got there. He could have not given Joe Burrow the scholarship, and then Joe Burrow would have had to go to Central Michigan or OU or something like that. Do we think he has the same path if he doesn't get Ohio State? So like, I'm not saying he owes Ohio State anything. He's earned everything he's got. But they did stick with him and give him the opportunity, which got him to LSU, and he had the greatest season in college football history, and now he's in the Super Bowl. That's all I'm saying. Like, let's not act like Ohio State's completely stupid on this one. They've done pretty well since.
And let's not act like Dwayne Haskins that year.
Wasn't in New York staying on the podium.
Yeah, when the year that Joe Burrow struggled while at LSU. Yeah. The whole letting Joe Burrow go it all looked justified because Dwayne Haskins threw for like 5,000 yards, 50 touchdowns.
Yeah.
And wasn't our typical escape out the pocket type quarterback. He was like the ultimate version of what we thought Cardale Jones was. That one year, it was justified. Dwayne Haskins was a first-round pick. It's because Haskins didn't pan out in the NFL. Burrow goes on the next year to have the greatest season. Justin Fields and them fell short against Clemson, so we weren't able to play against LSU to even, have a chance of we ended up beating Joe Burrow. Probably wasn't whatever. I don't really care. But because Haskins is a bust in the NFL, had he
there you go.
Pick, there you go. Like, if he was still the starting quarterback for the Washington football team and talking about getting his extension, we wouldn't even be having this conversation.
And let me tell you how this would have went. Joe Burrow wouldn't have got the opportunity to lose games at Ohio State. Haskins lost one game that year, and Ohio State's considered that whole year a waste of time because of the Purdue loss. So let's not act like Burrow would have got the same chance to like the growing pains that he got at LSU to have an average season. That shit wouldn't have flown.
Championship and won the Rose Bowl, and that was the same failure as this year, and that was with only one loss. We won the Big Ten championship. What we play? I think we played Washington that year in the Rose Bowl, and that was like playoff team, so who cares? Like,
right. So anyway, I had to pick your brain on that. I was getting a little red earlier. I'm like, okay, y'all need to just enjoy your Super Bowl, talk about your NFL, whatever your teams are. Like, take 10 seconds off from like constantly worried about what Ohio State's doing. Like, I can't help it. Everybody thinks that I'm crazy about that, but like it just never goes away. Like, Ohio State runs the football universe. Yeah, I said it. So anyway, Joe Burrow may have one of the greatest games we've ever seen. If they win this Super Bowl, Cincinnati wins the Super Bowl, Joe Burrow probably will have had one of the greatest games we've ever watched. We don't know that yet. What me and you are here to talk about tonight is the greatest performances by a player that we've ever seen. So we got a great list here. This is awesome. We got 10 different players. So I'm going to love this. I'm really excited. This is one of my favorite lists.
We didn't agree on the list. We don't have a matching one on there.
What's that? No, we do not.
Oh, this makes
it. We don't disagree. We just don't have any matches. So this is going to be a lot of fun. We have a combative one on here we'll get to. So we'll work our way up. We'll start at number 5. I'll start. I'll let you go. Or no, actually, yeah, I'll let you go so you can have the last one because your number 1 is pretty tight. I hope I've got this list right. I'll let you check it out. I'll put it up here so everybody can see it. There's our list. Is that correct for you? Did I get it wrong or right?
No, I mean I never changed the order, so I'm just rocking with how it goes. Like
You can change. We can go in order, whatever order you want to go in.
for me, James
Is.
White wasn't number 1. It was just the first one I put down, but
I
it's
got you.
fine. It's also fine because I would love for him to get his love. He didn't. To me, he didn't have the greatest performance I ever seen. When I was making the list and putting it down, I told you I'd get you back with the 5 in order.
Well,
and
if you've got it, that's fine. If you've got your order, we'll go that way. This is just a graphic so everybody can see what we're talking about. It's cool. So you go ahead and go through your order. I'll go through my order. So I'll start. I'll start at number 5. Let me bring my stats up here. We'll say it's my producer's got to bring my stats up here. And by producer, I mean my left hand. That sounded creepier than it was. So my number 5 greatest performance that I ever watched. I put Larry Fitzgerald, Super Bowl 43. That was Arizona Cardinal versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. And again, I know he lost the game, but Larry Fitzgerald did everything. He was the best player on the team. He was the glue of that team. He was, he was just the driving force. He did everything. He had a really good game. He had the breakaway touchdown. We thought he had the game-winning touchdown catch. Pittsburgh had a miraculous drive to win the game. But just watching the game with my eyeballs, I thought he was the best player on the field, even though Anquan Bolden had a really good game. But I just thought Fitzgerald did everything. Again, we talked about the other night on our show. You had the Harrison return for a touchdown, which really flipped things. They waited too long to unleash Larry Fitzgerald, who was the best receiver in football that year. But it was still one of the best games I ever saw. And for about 3 minutes, I thought Larry Fitzgerald was going to win the Super Bowl and be the Super Bowl MVP. So at number 5, I got Larry Fitzgerald, Super Bowl 43. I know you remember that game, and I know you like Larry Fitzgerald.
Yeah, I love my wide receivers. I love my corners. Obviously, as we move on down the list, I have somebody from that game as well. Going back to your episode that we did on Sunday with some of the greatest Super Bowls that we watched, this game made it on there. We talked about Larry Fitz. We also talked about the other guy that we'll get into. My number 5 is Von Miller. So I'm going to just rock with my list how it is because I also have a case that I'll keep James White at number 1. Von Miller at number 5. I mean, 2.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles. But here's the most important kicker of that game is that he made the league MVP quit. Like that's flat out the pressure that he applied off of that line, off of that edge. He made the league MVP quit. And we remember that play when Cam Newton fumbled the ball and Broncos defense dove and attacked it, and Cam Newton just kind of stood there like he didn't. And that was like kind of the start of the demise of Cam Newton. The questions about, how much does Cam Newton love the game? Like how much dog does he have in him? Like the MVP, you don't dive on it in the most important game of your life. Like, especially a guy we've seen perform well in the national championship, like have an amazing season in college. Like you're like, this is a Super Bowl. Like you don't worry about future contracts or nothing like that. Like all the chips are on the line in the Super Bowl. And the performance that Von Miller had, he made Cam Newton quit. Like obviously he didn't get subbed out, but mentally he checked out. And then he even checked out when he does the interview after. You could tell like he just rattled Cam Newton, and that didn't look like the MVP. That looked like 2020 Cam Newton on the Carolina Panthers. Like that looked like the 2020 version. Now that we have seen that version, that looked like the 2020 version of Cam Newton that was playing for the Carolina Panthers. That was not the league MVP that we saw dominate that whole year with his legs, with his arm, just the ability that he had. Von Miller changed all of that in that game.
It is hard to explain. Like, Denver got there based on their defense. If anybody, if you don't quite remember, this was when Peyton Manning limped through his last season, literally and figuratively, couldn't throw the ball. The defense carried him. And that play from Miller, the early strip sack, the touchdown, it changed the direction of Cam Newton's career, because it's hard to remember now because just like you said, we've seen Cam play for the last few years, so we're kind of used to like this version of him. Going into that game, we were all like he's the best player in football for the next 5-6 years, like no doubt. Like he was by far the best player in football. It felt like he had arrived, he had figured it out, and then after that play, it has actually never been the same. His next season was pretty good, but he was never the same Cam Newton. And Von Miller made no he was born for that moment. It was the closest thing we've seen to LT in years. He was on my he was on my just miss list. So I'm glad you put him in there. But man, what a game by Von Miller, who is in this year's Super Bowl, by the way. So that's and he's playing good, one of the highest rated defenders left. So
in the playoffs.
Oh, shout out to Von Miller, man. What a great game. At number 4, I've got Nick Large Richard Foles from Super Bowl 52. This is the Nick Foles was he came in after Carson Wentz got hurt. He plays a really good playoffs, and he plays one of the better Super Bowl games I've ever seen. But I factored in everything. He didn't even play as good as Tom Brady that day, but he received a touchdown. He made huge throws. He looked like he belonged there. And from going from backup quarterback to Super Bowl winner, and looking the GOAT in the eye in the biggest game of the year, and staring him down and getting it done. I still sometimes I watch that game on replay and don't believe what I saw. So I think Nick Foles had just one of the greatest games in sports ever. So he's number 4 in my Super Bowl picks. But man, what a day by Nick Foles, man.
Yeah, and so because my inaptitude of being able to read Roman numerals is why I have Super Bowl 51 Tom Brady. But it was Super Bowl 52 because you took Nick Foles, I took Tom Brady, for the simple fact, that would have to be, Tom Brady's performance would have to be what? The greatest performance by a loser? At the end of the day, if we were ranking
well, you'll get there.
Yeah, I mean, I'll get there, but because Tom Brady, 43 completions, most completions in the game. He threw for 62 passes, most passes thrown in a Super Bowl. 466 yards, most yards thrown in a Super Bowl. 2 touchdowns and 1 pick. I mean,
and here's the thing: Nick Foles, 28 for 43, 373 yards, 3 passing touchdowns, and 1 receiving touchdown, and he wasn't the best quarterback that day.
Right, and so it's like you talk about that, and you're like, to have seen two of the best quarterback performances you've ever seen in one game, and obviously as we go down the list, but in one game, 2 quarterbacks make your list from the same game. One is on yours, one is on mine. That goes to tell you how amazing. What was it? 41-33 was the final score. But that goes to tell you how amazing that game was. Is the fact that the winner, I got the loser, but they both played out of their mind. Throwing for almost 500 yards and losing the game. That's one of those Brady can look and be like, I did my part. Bill Belichick, the defensive guru, failed to Nick Foles. We talked about that. Brady gets the hey, that Super Bowl loss, it's not on me. I did everything I'm supposed to do as a quarterback. We did everything we're supposed to do as an offense. And then here comes Bill Belichick got fried by Nick Foles, and we don't talk about that on Bill Belichick's resume enough.
Oh no,
fried by Nick Foles.
Yeah. Yeah, if you want to listen to that, this game actually made our greatest Super Bowls show that we did. So you can go to Jeff Needs Sports and check that out. We did it a couple days ago. A great show. So with that being said, Mo, go ahead and go with number 4 on your list as I've got it wrote down.
Yeah, Tom Brady. I go Tom Brady. So for everything I said about, Nick Foles played amazing, but like you said, he wasn't the best quarterback on the field. And that's one of those, when Tom Brady really comes out, I know he did man in the arena and things, but as an active player, you don't unleash certain feelings because you don't pay the target on your back. And, Tom Brady's maybe retired. We don't know yet. But yeah, I think 10 years from now, when he does his Jordan-like documentary, which I think he will, I think the people will want something like that for a real dive into Tom Brady and have everybody sitting on the couch retired and being able to tell their stories about Tom Brady. But I do think this is going to be a game where Tom Brady throws shade and is like, this is the one that haunts me the most because I played absolutely amazing. And I was with a defensive head coach guru, the greatest coach of all time, arguably, definitely. He gets applauded for his, his mind defensively, and he got fried by Nick Foles. We couldn't
toasted
plan to stop Nick Foles. I do think this is going to be one of Tom Brady's throw shade moments. And then Bill Belichick is going to have to answer to that. Like I said, Brady, 466.
And the thing is, Belichick's teams got toasted a couple times in Super Bowls. That Atlanta team was running it up on them too. Brady saved him in that game.
Saved him in that game, and we don't talk about it enough because at the end of the day, still got 6, still made it to 8 of them. Made it to 9 of them together, but he got 6. But We don't talk about like how Vinatieri changed the narrative on Bill Belichick. We always talk about Tom Brady and never give him his credit. The kicker gave him a couple Super Bowls, but we're like, well, Bill Belichick's defense has gotten fried a few times in Super Bowls and even in playoff games, but we don't knock him for it because we all acknowledge him as the greatest coach of all time. But this is one of those, I think, 10 years from now when Brady drops his documentary, his GOAT documentary like MJ did, that this will be like,
bro, Brady,
throw shade.
There's a universe, an alternate universe out there to where Brady lost to Jake Delhomme, Eli Manning, Nick Foles, Matty Ice,
Ryan, like Matt Ryan. Like, yeah, there is an alternate universe.
There is a weird world out there. So yeah, but anyway, that was one of the, again, that's why it's on our list of best Super Bowls ever played. At number 3, I got John Elway, which that's a throwback. I hear John Elway and it makes me feel old. But this is John Elway. This is Super Bowl 33. This is versus the Atlanta Falcons. The game wasn't that great, but what this was about was like the culmination of John Elway's career. He went out there. He took it. He left no doubts, about this game. It got, it was one of those games a little closer than people remember, but it really wasn't that close. This was Elway's last game as a Denver Bronco, a legendary career. John Elway's got this weird underrated career to where like there's a version of this where he's the best quarterback we've ever saw. Went to 5 Super Bowls, played great, throughout his career, carried the team, had one of the weakest, supporting cast around him for someone that went to 5 Super Bowls. So, and this was just one of those, like he just went out, he made every throw. Rod Smith had a huge game. But I gave it to John Elway because I just watched it and I was like, he knew what was at stake. It was a lot like Brady last year, who was just like, I know it's at stake here. Like, I'm just going to end this game. And I remember watching the game and thinking like, and then just knowing he was going to, ride off into the sunset. So I actually shout out to John Elway and Super Bowl 33, just one of the true legends. And then he finished the job.
Yeah. When obviously I'm not old enough to, I didn't see
this. Yes, obviously, Mo, you're not old
sorry.
enough.
Like, but I've seen, like, because I've loved sports for so long, like I've seen these games. I used to watch like Hardwood Classics all the time. So I've seen these games, but obviously I don't know the feeling of the games at the time. I just seen performance.
The closest thing would be Brady last year, like knowing the moment, knowing his age, knowing it could be the end. And it's like John Elway had. It sounds crazy. John Elway had 336 yards in this game. That was a good bit, in the 80s and 90s. Like a 300-yard game was still a big deal, but just commanded the offense, played a good game. So it was just kind of a cool moment. You know what I mean? It was more about the moment than it was actually how he played.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, it was one of those, like it was his last game as a Denver Bronco.
Mm-hmm.
The best way to cap off a legendary career with a team is winning a Super Bowl.
And a back-to-back. It was his second of the back-to-back, all the pressure. This was the famous Atlanta was there because they knocked off Minnesota in the championship game with the field goal and all that. Let me just tell you right now, that Minnesota team playing correctly beats Denver by 21 that night. Like that Minnesota team was the biggest what if in the history of football, as far as I'm concerned. Best team I ever saw that didn't even make the Super Bowl. But so that's how Atlanta got there. Not that they earned it. They beat Minnesota, but they were not the best team in the NFC that year by any stretch of the imagination. But still, it's a cool memory. Like when I was thinking about it.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what we do these shows for. The performances that it makes you go back. It made you think. Like, look at the scores. That's how I came up with mine. Like, I remember these moments. It made me think. Watch some clips from the game just to refresh my memory. But that's how I came up with my list too. Was just like I remember certain things in the moment, and from here on out, I start to get with my bias from 3, 2, and 1.
No, your here on out's really good, man. I'm in. So let's what's your number 3, man?
So number 3, obviously, this major show, greatest Super Bowls we ever watched. I picked this Super Bowl. This player is the reason why I picked this Super Bowl. Flat out bias. I am a San Antonio Holmes fan. He attended the Ohio State University. There is, it's flat bias in how I respected his performance. But like
But you're not wrong. You're not wrong, man.
Yeah, like he made the catch. Like when you really think about it, you'd be like, well, I see how it makes this list. 9 catches, 131 yards, and a touchdown. But it wasn't just a touchdown. It was the touchdown to win these Super Bowls. So
and one of the greatest catches in the history of football. Like there's
that
no
almost
doubt in
gets
that.
lost. Like and we talked about this before, but isn't it crazy that that catch kind of gets lost?
Oh,
Because we start
totally.
talking about greatest catches, and it's like Manningham, obviously the David Tyree, and so the Julian Edelman. So it's like this loses because of recency bias. Well, like this was arguably because this was the catch. They didn't go on to win the game. They won the game.
Won the game.
That catch basically ended the game. I think Arizona had
Arizona, I believe it ended with a strip sack that would have been like a Hail Mary attempt from
it was
Arizona.
like 10 seconds. Like it wasn't much. It was less than it wasn't much time left. Like it was going to take a miracle, but it was like you knew the game was over, but you still have to play it because sports.
And he had the whole drive. Like, San
and
Antonio Holmes had the whole drive.
So like it's one of those like when you make the catch, like to me, like we started talking about this, like this would be the greatest catch in Super Bowl because we didn't go on to win the game because of the catch. We didn't set up for a field goal. We didn't that if it wasn't for that catch on 4th down, the drive is over. However you want to look at like this won the game, and he had an absolutely amazing performance. He did everything you want from a receiver.
Outside of John Taylor, like, has there been another game-winning catch besides Antonio Holmes? Like, there's not that many. I guess, because I don't consider Plexico's a game-winning catch because Tom Brady had a ton of time to get back downfield. Like, it was the go-ahead catch, and
that was the go on. They went on to win the game because of that catch, but it was like a walk-off as opposed to like these guys. It ended the game. There were like 10 seconds left. Like that was the game because of that catch. So, like I said, like this was the catch. Like, and it was 2 toes. Barely in, like it was
great. It was a great catch.
They had to review it, so there was already celebration, and then they reviewed it, and so it almost like instilled in your memory. Because do you remember how long it took for them to determine? Like it was about a solid like 2 commercial breaks, and we know in the Super Bowl commercials take forever. It was like 2. They knew they had to get this right because if there was any type of doubt, they knew they had to get this right because this was the difference. Between a Super Bowl champ.
Yeah. I remember, like, I liked San Antonio Holmes a lot at Ohio State. That 2005 team that he played on was, it was one of the better teams we ever had that didn't, they won the Fiesta Bowl and lost a couple games, a couple tough ones, but really like San Antonio Holmes. I don't like Pittsburgh at all, but I was so happy for him at that moment. I've got a lot of Pittsburgh fans, as friends, and I text them. I'm like, "You're welcome." Like, you're welcome. San Antonio he didn't have I think a lot of it, he didn't have the career, that he could have based on like a Super Bowl winning catch, but neither did Plexico. John Taylor had a really, really good career. San Antonio, but so I think that's, and this is just a game that gets kind of lost. Like, I have no idea why that it slips through the cracks like it does. It just kind of isn't a game that is constantly remembered. Now, a lot of this happens because like sometimes it's who broadcasts the game and you don't get as many replays and all this. I don't know if it's a situation like that, but this game just doesn't come up a lot. It's all, if it does, it's about the Harrison 99-yard return for a touchdown.
But, and I don't remember you know what else, when it comes to Super Bowls, I don't remember who performed at that halftime show. Because that's also like Super Bowls get
right
because of legendary halftime shows. I don't remember, and it could be like somebody excellent, but I don't remember. And so that's how sometimes like when people think about it's a great game and a great halftime performance, like that Super Bowl goes on, or if it's a bad game, but that you'll start thinking about, well, man, I remember the halftime show. Like that means a lot. So like I don't remember who performed in this halftime show. I was still, I was in like high school at the time, but still.
That's a good time for you to watch this game, though. Like that's a good time for you to see this performance by San Antonio Holmes.
That made me
that was cool. Yeah.
I was playing quarterback at the time.
Oh, man.
I watched this game because all my favorite players were like T.O., Antonio Holmes, Ted Ginn, like Ohio State guys. So I wanted to I want to play wide receiver. Like, I want to be these guys. I don't want to be the quarterback, like da-da-da. And then in my head, I'm like, no good quarterbacks go to Ohio State. So I'm like, in my head, I'm going to Ohio State to play football. Yeah. So I wanted to play wide receiver.
Oh, man, that's good. That's good. That's what these memories are about. That's true. And I'm the same way. Like, I got a couple on my list here that I was in the exact same situation that you were then. So we'll just go right to it. My number 2 is a wide receiver. Everybody might have heard of this guy. His name is Jerry Rice.
Maybe.
Yeah. So we talked about we did a great show on this again. Go back and listen. We talk about the Super Bowl. My number 1 all time is Bengals 49ers and Super Bowl 23. But Super Bowl 23, Jerry Rice, it just is one of the most memorable performances I ever saw. And it was one of these, just like you talked about, you knew it when it was happening. As you're watching the game, every pass that Rice caught, you're like, this is big. Like he's doing something big. This is important. And again, Rice at this time is only like, this would be his fourth year in the league, I think, or third. 80th, yeah, I think is his third or fourth year in the league. Hadn't won a Super Bowl yet. He had 11 catches, 215 yards, one touchdown. But I swear it felt like every catch he had was ginormous. There was no throwaway, catches. It just felt like that. And at that point, I'm pulling for the Bengals. Most of Ohio was at that point. It'll be sort of like this year. And when he caught the ball back then, like Rice, you stopped breathing for a second until he got tackled. Like it was just he just jumped off the screen, with his ability. And you forget, because sometimes as these guys get older, and I'm as guilty as anybody, you assume the newer guy is just better. Like the next guy that comes along, like right now, I'm sure there's a young person that's like, oh, Cooper Kupp would have 8,000 yards receiving in 1988. But then you go back and watch, and you're like, sometimes you got to slow your roll on that. Jerry Rice was awesome. He deserved, he deserves the GOAT label. And I just think that was like it was just a great performance by Rice. And at that point, like, I'm like you, man. At that point, I'm playing football. I went out. Jerry Rice wore red gloves. I went out and bought red Newman gloves. I imagine Newmans were gone by the time you even played football. But that was they became. You probably had cutters, right? You're a cutter guy.
Yeah.
We had Newmans. Same thing. Sticky receiving gloves. I bought red because I wanted to be Jerry Rice. I wanted to be a wide receiver. I couldn't get number 80. I was 84, but that was back when you still wore 80s as a wide receiver. It just everything that you said about Holmes and all that holds to me with Jerry Rice. I knew what I was watching at the point. Like when you watch the film of, you watched every step he made, you watch how he came out of breaks, you watch how he used his hands, and all that stuff still translates. The technician that he was, not to mention the athlete that he was. It was just one of those. It was just a time capsule for okay, it's like watching some of the Jordan games in 96 or 98 or whenever you want to pick. Like you just watch that and you're like, this is a time capsule. Like this is as good as it gets. Enjoy it. Don't overthink it. Yeah, this is a true legend playing, and you knew it that night. And he had basically every yard on the drive except for the Taylor got the touchdown, but everything else was Jerry Rice in the drive. So just had a lot of fun rewatching that. Shout out to Jerry Rice, one of the just one of the true legends of sports.
Yeah, and he becomes one of the legends that, as time he's starting to get forgotten about, right? Like we have the GOAT argument for receivers, and like he's still atop of the list, but now like the people my age are wanting to do Randy Moss.
Randy Moss has
because even T.O.'s right there. And for me, like I gotta respect that Jerry Rice is the GOAT, and it's gonna take a lot more than the legendary career that Moss or Owens had to pass that up. Multiple Super Bowls. Like that's another thing you gotta think about. He's got championships, he's got the receiving yards.
Yeah, Jerry Rice has Jerry Rice might have 4. Did he catch me? He might have caught one late in his career with another team. He had there's a weird, like Jerry Rice went to Seattle year.
Like I remember Rice on Seattle. Rice played. Remember when Rice played for the Raiders?
He played for the Raiders. He went to the Super Bowl with the Raiders, didn't he?
Was he on that? Was he with Tim Brown?
I think he might have been on that team that lost in the Super Bowl.
He
got hurt one year. He blew out.
Right, because he was with the Raiders and he was old. It was like him, Tim Brown. It was like a nostalgic, like this would have been a legendary group if they were playing. If he got both of them in their prime, like that would have been a legendary group.
I remember he broke a record because there was about a season there where every time he caught the ball, he broke a record. He blew out his knee on a touchdown to break a record. I remember that for Oakland, and then came back and played like 2 more years. And it was one of those weird ones. It was exactly like Jordan playing for the Wizards. Like people wanted to clown it, and you're like, no, he can do whatever he wants. Like Jerry Rice could do whatever he wants. Like it didn't matter. Right. Yeah, he earned that right. He had the 3 chips, and he had 10 or 11 of the greatest seasons we've ever seen. I mean, his next year in the Super Bowl was a great game, and then the '95 game, he had a great game. Like he had 3 fantastic Super Bowls, but his first one's just the one that I remember.
Yeah, because I remember even like Jerry Rice, like the Jerry Rice I remember when he was at Oakland and they played against.
When he had braids?
So when they played against Miami, and that was when Miami had the baseball field. Like they were sharing the field with the Marlins. Like for me, that's the Jerry Rice I remember.
Yeah.
Like that's the one I watched on TV. I didn't get to see. It was like watching. Like I remember Jordan on the Wizards. I remember playing with him on NBA Live. Like that was the. So that's the Jerry Rice I know. It's like, oh, you don't know what you missed. And I'm like, yeah, I don't. But even still, like,
well, yeah, but you're gonna see you're gonna see guys that we don't. Like that's just how it's always
relevant enough that like, okay, this isn't the Jerry Rice that we talk about when we talk about him about broadcasting, but like you say, he earned that right. He could do whatever. Like, no, you're not going to force him to retire. He retires when he wants to. Like, he's become that kind of.
Let me tell you how long ago Jerry Rice started playing football. When he first came into the league, sometimes wide receivers still put their hand in the ground.
At lining up on the line of scrimmage?
No, on the line of scrimmage, but at split out wide, you still put your hand in the dirt. You still got a 3-point stance sometimes at wide receiver.
Yeah,
Jerry Rice came into the league. That's a long time ago. That shit is true. I never did that. I started playing football right about the same time Rice was playing, but I never had to put my hand in the ground at wide receiver.
Imagine somebody doing that right now.
No, it looks like they're starting a track game, dude. This shit is wild, man.
Oh my god.
Yeah, Jerry Rice. There's footage of it. It's pretty funny. But like I said, height of the West Coast offense, man, it was great. So you're number 2. Surprise, another wide receiver.
Yeah. So when I start with I have a story behind it. So
I want to dig into this.
I'm gonna use Jeff's term. Full disclosure. I owned a Philadelphia Eagles jersey because of this guy right here. Everybody knows I'm a Cowboys fan, and most of us wouldn't.
So did my son, by the way.
I had the 81 Terrell Owens Philadelphia Eagles jersey. I was a kid. Super Bowl 39. I think that was in was that 08? 08 or 09? No, it was before that. 06. It was like 2006. It was like 2006.
This was the third, right? Of the first 3.
Yeah, so this was like 2006, right?
It sounds right. Feels like we should know.
Yeah, I really feel like I should know, but the years and you get the Roman numerals and you just forget. But T.O. he really wasn't supposed to play in this game. He was supposed to be done for the season, didn't play throughout the playoffs, and then he was supposed to be a decoy. Like, he was out there because for some reason the football god struck him with enough health to be able to move. You remember Terrell Owens had a broken leg.
Let's dig into this Terrell Owens story here, because this season is epic. Of course, he's labeled as, whatever, the worst teammate in history of the world, even though nothing on the field ever backed that up. This is it changed the rule. He broke his leg on a horse collar tackle, which now everybody knows is illegal. This is why the horse collar tackle is illegal, because he got drugged down from behind and broke his leg. He was him and McNabb were having one of the great seasons, and he had a separate end zone dance for every stadium he went in, and it was the most amazing thing I've ever seen. Like, it's hard to explain what a big deal Terrell Owens was. This is a classic. He went to Philadelphia to win a Super Bowl, right? I mean, like he didn't play his whole career there. So I'm just setting the stage for, like, when he broke his leg, it was really, really, really a huge deal. And I think he was by far the best receiver in the league that year. I don't think it was really close at that point in Terrell's career. So you can go now.
Close. My boy Chad Ochocinco over there, like, I'm a avid Chad Johnson lover. So it was a little close.
Okay. That's how close it was, everybody. Ochocinco was second.
Steve Smith was, but
Moss was still kicking. No, this. I don't want to get sidetracked, but this might have been those weird Moss Raiders years to where
Raiders, because remember they counted him out. They thought his career was over, and he went
kind of irrelevant.
Had a record-breaking season. Yeah.
Anyway, Terrell Owens owned football. He's on the cover of 2K, like everything.
Amazing, because he played, like you say, he broke his leg. Like, he was done, and it almost seemed like Philly's done at that point. And then he comes in because, like I said, the football gods struck him with something, and who knows however many steroids. They'll never talk about that because steroids was illegal. But we all know you ain't playing on a broken leg without something that in your body that shouldn't be. 9 catches, 122 yards, doesn't get a touchdown. But the fact that he was even able to have T.O.-like performance against that Patriots defense.
I guess I was going to say, bring that up, because this was when the Patriots defense was great.
Yeah, like that Patriots defense was, Hall of Famers and Pro Bowlers everywhere. And that was even at a time where playing in the Pro Bowl, being a Pro Bowler was like a huge deal. Like it meant something. It was like incentives and contract. Like the Pro Bowl wasn't a joke at that point in time. I'm not saying it was the greatest football game we ever watched, but like it wasn't two-hand touch at that point. You were going to the ground.
Yeah, it was a little different.
You weren't hitting quarterbacks. That was the only person that wasn't getting touched in Pro Bowls was quarterbacks. Outside of that, Sean Taylor lays out punters.
I'm going to say shout out to Sean Taylor.
Yeah, shout out, rest in peace, Sean Taylor. But that's what they did in Pro Bowls. But 9 catches, 122 yards on a broken leg. Like he was really there to be a decoy and kind of make.
And they couldn't cover him.
Yeah, and I feel like he was there just to make Bill Belichick prepare for him for just in case. Like, does he have that one play in him? And 9 catches, 122 yards later, like, and they had a shot at this game. Obviously,
I don't think that they intended on playing T.O. that game. I think T.O. just kept going and was able to do it. Like I remember going up to that, there was no plans on him playing.
Yeah,
I think he was just like. He just felt good and kept going.
Yeah, and he wasn't supposed to be there. And then I thought, like, when he is playing, like, everybody, he's on a broken leg. He's just a decoy. Like, he's just out there as a scare tactic. He's not going to play. He's not really going to run a route. Like, you're not doing that on a broken leg. And for him to 9 catches and 122 yards later, wish he would have had a touchdown.
They're right.
Touchdown might have changed the outcome of this Super Bowl. But to be able to do what he did on a broken leg, like, that doesn't happen. That's like we emphasize it doesn't get the love because they didn't win, right? Because we emphasize like Jordan's flu game where like he was running a temperature and he played really well. Like, and it's not to knock him. I'm just saying like some of those Kobe, when he walked off that Achilles tear, like still shot his free throws. Like we emphasize the toughness about him, but they also like won. Like he won the flu game. Kobe and him, like his free throws mattered in that game. Where T.O., like he played on a broken leg, but he lost. So it's like at that point, the legend was in the making being created.
He was disliked. He was disliked. He was pigeonholed as like a problem. Like, and he was a weird dude. Like he was. I shouldn't say weird because I suspect that he may have some actual issues sometimes. But it seems like his after football life has been good. So I'm glad that.
Like he was just a real celebrity. Like everything,
it
was all about entertainment.
And the shirtless workout to the drive, yes,
in the driveway, but he's a guy where he did it his way.
Yeah,
he didn't care what anybody thought, and it was like, but you have the media to kill him, and like because people we don't understand this dude. There's a way to act professional.
There you go.
Like, you never outside of Donovan McNabb, who like you don't have teammates speak ill of T.O. Like even coaches don't really speak ill of T.O. Like how many of his coaches have come out and like Donovan McNabb and Jeff Garcia, the two people that didn't like Terrell Owens. And it's like, and then with his antics, everybody took it and ran with it. But then, even the godforsaken Skip Bayless had to have T.O. on the show a few years ago. T.O.'s like, tell me the problems I caused. Like you say, I'm a kid in the locker room, but tell me what teammate hated
He performed.
Yeah, so what? Everybody hated Donovan McNabb too in the locker room. So what's the difference? Like, oh, well, Jeff Garcia, yeah, well, he was trash anyway. So who cares? Like, he didn't deserve a guy like me. Like, and T.O. did it his way. And so he gets killed for that. But at the end of the day, like, a performance like this, like, that's a Hall of Fame stamping performance. We already know he's top 5 wide receiver of all time. And then you have a performance like this. Had he won, that'd be it. I think people will be talking about like that performance.
Well, he would have changed his career and McNabb's career if they win. And Andy Reid's, like the whole thing. Like it is what it is. I mean, somebody's got to lose the games, but we're having a different conversation. And T.O., what I do like about his career is aging better. Like people are forgetting the BS and the narratives, and they're starting to realize like, wow. And like you start looking back at what that guy did on the field, because there's honestly like. There's not a lot of guys like him now. Like we think that football evolves quickly. He was so big and physical, but also a route runner, and he had great hands. Like there's not a lot of TOs in the league right now. He's like DK Metcalf. If DK Metcalf
was
played like if he played like Cooper Kupp, like that's who we're talking about with TO. Cooper Kupp's probably the closest person I can think of right now as far as really tall and rangy and good with his hands, but also finds a way to get open. Not blazing,
was a bit bigger too. Like
that's what I mean. T.O. was thick,
like
but
yeah.
But like imagine T. Higgins, but like great. It's hard to explain. Like T.O. was a force of nature. So yeah, I like that. We might do a T.O. show sometime. We should let's just dedicate a whole show to T.O.
Talking about Terrell Owens.
Yeah, but yeah, me too. Me too.
Of all time.
All right, so here we go to my number one. This is my favorite. Without it, this is the one. this is the one that I didn't even have to think about. I knew my number one performance of all time. It's been this way since the day it happened. It's Doug Williams, Super Bowl 20. Like everybody knows the story. It's 1987. It was the strike year. It was the Jay Schrader had the job. Doug Williams took the job. They're playing the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos are coming off a Super Bowl loss. Everybody assumes that, like, because that's kind of how you did it back then. You lost the Super Bowl, then you won the next year. It's kind of how things went. John Elway, the Broncos, the three amigos for the Broncos then, like one of the best Broncos teams they'd had to date. Doug Williams, first black starting quarterback in the Super Bowl. And that was, like, it's hard to explain to, like, normal people now what a big deal that was, but that was all the talk was going into the Super Bowl was there's a black quarterback starting in the Super Bowl. And that's still divisive now. Let's not be silly. But then I can't even explain what that was like, because it destroyed every narrative that people had. Like it's just one of those. It was as extreme as you guys might think it was in 1987. So Doug Williams comes into this game with all the weight, in the world on his shoulders, because if he fails, they're just going to go crazy with false narratives and pin it all on him. And not to mention his team's going to lose a Super Bowl. I don't know if we ever talk about the pressure that Doug Williams had on his shoulders that day. And so what's he do? He comes in, game starts off ho-hum, and everybody's like, man, Denver, might be in trouble again, just like they were last year versus the Giants. Here comes the second quarter. Doug Williams throws 4 touchdown passes in the second quarter. I think 200 and about 25 yards in the second quarter. They scored 35 points total because Ricky Sanders had 122 yards rushing in the second quarter. It's the greatest quarter in the history of NFL football. Like there's never been a better second quarter. That's it. Game's over at halftime. We spend it. What was cool about that is we get to spend the entire second half talking about what Doug Williams just did. Like we get as it's happening. This wasn't a last second field goal. And then because you got to remember back then, as soon as the game's over, like you're watching whatever primetime television shows on. That's it. Like you talk about it, like at school or around the water cooler, you read the paper, Sports Illustrated comes out, Doug Williams on the cover says, wow. But you didn't have us. You didn't have Jeff and Mo doing post show and podcast, and you didn't have, all the ESPN stuff. Like you saw it as it happened, and then everybody individually talked about it. So what was really cool about that game is you had a whole second half that the nation kind of got to discuss it together and like live it out together, and and destroy so many barriers that were put up. And it was also just on field a great performance by Williams. Like it was something to see. It was like the closest I can think of is, y'all know when Steph Curry gets hot for like a quarter, and it's to the point to where he's shooting and he's not looking, and he's high-fiving the fans, and like it feels like he could throw it, behind his back full court. That's what it was like for 15 minutes of football. And it's still the most amazing thing I've ever seen on the football field, and I just love it.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about Doug Williams, like somebody my age, like he's a pioneer for
Yeah.
somebody like my age.
Still
like,
coaching.
Yeah. But there's no McNabb, there's no Dante Culpepper. You would go down the line. There's no Michael Vick. Like there's none of that without Doug Williams, right? Because it takes to break barriers. It takes somebody to be successful, or else like the narrative just finally pushes where black athletes are everything but quarterbacks. They're not. But once you win, like all is forgotten, and like you lay the foundation for the future, and that's essentially what Doug Williams did to somebody my age. Like his importance, and it's like we're talking about it in February, but like if we were just to bring up important athletes in the month of Black History, like Doug Williams would be up there. Like no, he's not Muhammad Ali with what he did in the fight or whatever, but it wasn't at that point in time. But like the foundation that he laid for black quarterbacks, and to even still be drafted and be respected, or have a type of like you're just a high school guy because you were athletic. Like it's Doug Williams and the success that he had in winning a Super Bowl, breaking that barrier.
It's unbelievable. And he went to Grambling. He went to an HBCU. It's not like he didn't come out of a football factory. Like he played for Eddie Robinson. Like the story is just, it's so perfect, and he handled it so well. And I know it, all this stuff. I hope most people think like, well, we're so far past that like this is ridiculous. But I remember what it was like. I remember the conversations that people had. I remember what the conversations that football fans had. Like it was a real thing. Like don't let anybody understate like what a big deal it was when Williams did that. And against Elway. I mean, Elway had nothing to do with it. Like, Elway's a great quarterback, but he's there. That's the golden child of the NFL. Like, he stared him down at that point. It was like, there is no possible way that Doug Williams could beat John Elway. Like, there is just, it can't happen. And he torched him. I hate, I would like to think the history, we would still be at this point, but without that game, I don't know how we get there. You know what I mean? Like, so it was just, it was amazing. I mean, Doug Williams had a good NFL career, but for one day, he was just, he's just on top of the sports world. Like, there's just no other way to say it. Legendary performance.
That's all it takes.
God, it was just something to see.
He goes down in history as when you're the first to do anything, like, your moment lives on forever. So for Doug Williams to be the first Black quarterback, like, his legend lives on forever. And I'm pretty sure, like, I'd speak for anybody, like, nobody cares if you tell me Doug Williams was an average quarterback after that. Like, he did the unthinkable. Like, that day, he's the legend. And so you don't care if he was average. You don't remember him for anything else, but that Super Bowl, like, he's the first. He goes down as the first for something. And when you're the first for anything, especially in the sports world, like, you live on for forever. Like your legend lives on forever.
You're exactly right. It'll never be erased what he did. Like, I mean, like I say, like, not to belabor it, we're talking about a league that this isn't too many years after Warren Moon, maybe the best quarterback I ever saw play, had to go play Canadian football because the NFL wouldn't let him play quarterback. And he wound up being one of the best quarterbacks in both leagues. Like, we're not that far removed from that when Doug Williams does that. Like, it's just, and we're not only that, they had to decide Washington, shout out to Joe Gibbs. They had to decide to let Doug Williams be the starting quarterback because he wasn't the original starting quarterback. It was Jay Schrader. Jay Schrader got hurt in the middle of the season. There was all the strike and all these other things. They could have went back to Jay Schrader. Like, there's so many factors. It's just fascinating, but it's history and it's awesome. And, like, again, on the field, it was awesome as it happened too. This wasn't like he got by with it and then it's the social impact or whatever. Like, it was actually a great performance on the field too. So just it's one of those just lightning in a bottle situations, legendary performance. And like Mo said, man, it can't ever be taken away. So I'm Doug Williams. This will never change in my rankings, I don't think.
Yeah, it doesn't. And I'll tell you, for those of y'all that don't know, like, we've been doing shows, we've been having conversations, and Jeff has been leading up to be able to lash out, unleash that moment. Like, I knew this was coming. When he made the show idea, I knew that this conversation was coming. So just for perspective, like, Jeff has been waiting for this. He created this show to talk about that moment. He didn't even Super Bowl because part of him wanted to pick this Super Bowl as the greatest Super Bowl he ever watched to give Doug Williams his flowers, but he remembered we were doing the top 5 performances, and so he knew his number one. I don't even think you cared about 2 through 5 because you knew your number one. Like, all this was leading up to your number one.
Hey, Jerry Rice went to an HBCU also, I believe. So shout out to Jerry Rice too. He took the Terrell Owens too, right?
I don't think.
Well, they might not be an HBCU. Yeah, you're right.
Like Tennessee, University of Tennessee, Chattanooga.
Yeah, and Rice went to Mississippi Valley. So
it's like a small school.
But anyways, some of these guys took the hard way to get there. I guess that's what we're saying. Tom Brady, 7th round pick, everybody knows. Von Miller was great. Fitzgerald was the best player in college football. Like, it goes both ways, but you can basically, what we're saying is you can do it from every direction. So, all right, Mo, without further ado, give us your number one because this is a really good choice.
The unforgotten hero in the Super Bowl, where a whole bunch of narratives, right, in this Super Bowl. So
this is what started Jeff Hates Running Backs. This is what started this. This man right here started Jeff Hates Running Backs, and in a good way.
See, so boom, perfect. So Super Bowl 51, James White should have been the Super Bowl MVP, right? And when we talk about Super Bowl 51, like, the focus obviously is 28-3. But when you talk about the narratives and we share blame on, Kyle Shanahan gets buried for it, for him being the offensive coordinator. Obviously, Dan Quinn gets buried for it. We talk about the Atlanta offense just imploding. Then we talk about Tom Brady. And then when we think about the Patriots, like, Tom Brady brought them back. And then you think about the Julian Edelman catch, right? Like, those are the narratives. Those are the memories. But, like, this man, James White, 6 carries for 29 yards. Terrible. How could a running back, 6 carries to 29 yards, and you're telling me he was supposed to win Super Bowl MVP? He had 14 catches, 110 yards, 3 touchdowns. This was like he was the ultimate like
the game-winning touchdown.
Yeah, and this is why there are 2-back systems now because of guys like James White who like they're dynamic enough of a runner throughout their career of high school, college, like they are running backs, but like they bring a different flavor to the game and out of the backfield that you need. And he became like Brady's safety blanket, like him and Gronk, like the tight end running back, like it was, especially in that offense, James White fit perfect. Like he was the safety blanket. If all else fails, like I put a swing route to my running back out the backfield, and he made the most of it. And even after this was leading up, everybody thought James White was going to win. Like there were a lot of people who thought James White was going to win Super Bowl MVP.
He should have.
When you look at it, and then Tom Brady won it and said, this award should go to James White. Like, so,
yeah,
but he's
no shade to Brady.
Brady said it. Like, it's not to take away from what Brady did. Like, you had to make those throws. Like, James White doesn't have 110 yards without Brady throwing the ball. But that's one of those where you give the quarterback too much credit sometimes. And that's where you gave the legend his legendary moment. Like, coming back down 28-3, like, he was already legendary at that point, and it put a stamp on his GOAT case that he was.
Let's imagine James White. This is what started Jeff Hates running backs. Let's imagine James White's name is LaDainian Tomlinson. Like we're talking about one of the greatest games that the running backs ever played.
Oh, he's winning. He's Super Bowl MVP. It's not even
easily.
It's not him, Adrian Peterson. Like we go down the line, Barry Sanders, whatever. They're winning Super Bowl MVP off that performance.
Deion Branch has a Super Bowl MVP.
Yeah, like, and nobody would care that you only had 6 carries, 29 yards. Like, okay, LT had 14 catches, 110 yards, 3 touchdowns, and the game-winning touchdown. Like you said. So, and Brady acknowledged it. Like, James White should have won this. Like, he's the unsung hero in really a lot of Super Bowls because when certain guys win Super Bowl MVP, and we bring up this list, like, we know. Like T.O. would have got it had they won. He would have got acknowledged for his performance. Yeah. Santonio Holmes was the Super Bowl MVP. Brady had they won, he would have won Super Bowl MVP. Von Miller, on my list was the Super Bowl MVP. But then when you think about James White, like if we talk about that game, we bring up 28-3. Nobody, even we've just had the conversation about that game recently, and nobody really brought up James White's performance. He had 14 catches for 110 yards and 3 touchdowns. We talked about that.
I'm so glad you brought it up and put it on the list because he is one of my favorite players of all time. He's just a great guy and a great story, like, to start with that. And he's just a great player. And he had he's got at least 2 Super Bowls. He might have 3 with them. Nice career, but just like, I remember that game being like, I always go back to that. When I'm arguing about the running backs, but first thing I say is like James White was the best player on the field that day, and it's James White. Like,
yeah, and like that's the James White game. Like, essentially, that should have been his moment. He should have a Super Bowl MVP,
and he would. I guarantee he doesn't care at all. Like he's just that dude. Like he doesn't.
Yeah, it's one of those, like, and to have it at one, like, people can argue whether it's the greatest, but it's like I want to give credit to the unsung hero. I'm going to give credit to the guy that when we talk about this moment, you think about 28-3. When you talk about Atlanta, you talk about Kyle Shanahan folding as an offensive coordinator. You talk about Dan Quinn being the head coach. You talk about how could y'all not run the ball, run the timeout. Y'all kept throwing Matt Ryan. Like, you should have took command and took charge as a quarterback who was an MVP, supposed to win the Super Bowl. Like, and then you talk about Brady and Belichick, and this is the story of their careers, like how Belichick was getting torched, and then their defense just tightened up and played absolutely amazing. So all the stars get the credit, and then Julian Edelman really making one of the most amazing catches in Super Bowl history.
Edelman had a really good game, by the way. Edelman did have a really good game.
But it was like, and then that catch sticks out to you. Like, when you think about a moment in the Patriots offense, like it was that Julian Edelman catch. Like that's what sticks to, especially your casual fan. But then you just forget about, well, where were all these points coming from? If Brady wasn't throwing for a whole bunch of touchdowns and Edelman didn't have 3 touchdowns. Like, so now Gronk didn't have 3 touchdowns. So where are these points? And it's all James White. Like, it's an amazing performance by James White. So for me, he's like the unsung hero.
Yeah.
And so I have to give him his credit. So to put him at number 1 is just really to give him and bring light to the fact James White had a game of all games, but
his name doesn't stand out. Like, what an innocuous name.
He wasn't a top 5 running back. Yeah. He wasn't a star in the game. He was just
the only thing that would have made him more unsung is if his name was just Jim White. Like, if his name's Jim White, we're like, no. But another guy, the Patriots had like that. I remember Kevin Falk. Marshall's cousin had one of the. I love that guy out of LSU. One of the greatest careers, best third down back I ever saw. I stand by it. The best as far as a pure third down back, which was pretty much what he was. he had a first down. I always said it. Kevin Fox in the game, get first down.
See, but people forget about the fact that there was a time in football where you did have a third down back. Like
It's
there were
Kevin Falk actually now. Kevin Falk has a good career in today's NFL. Like he's perfect for
but
today's
you
NFL.
forget about you forget because now there's a two back system too, and like it was a quick translation and it's been around for a minute now. Everybody shoots for the two back system. You forget that even when you had star running backs, either your fullback, you had an elite fullback, or you had an elite third down guy, third and short or whatever. But because the stars take over the game, you don't think about who was LT's third down back. Adrian Peterson was. Those were the do it all guys, but there were very few. Then you had your third down back, but you took it back to a time where people my age, I remember I was so invested in football, obviously playing and stuff too. But that was a real thing. There were really
it was a big switch, and the Patriots were.
Go on down and get me the first down. That's your job.
You had to block, and you had to be a great receiver on third down. And then then you got guys like we say like Tomlinson and stuff that were everything. But those guys like Marshall Faulk is still I think he might be the best player I ever saw play football. I can't quite quantify that yet, but that guy could do it all. But there's not a ton of those. And on that day, White, he knew his job. He knew what he needed to get done, and without him, they don't win the game. That's all you can say about it. I understand they need Brady, they need Gronk, they need Edelman too. But White and he had the game winning touchdown. How many players have had the game winning touchdown, walk-off touchdown,
and forget about
you kind of forget about him. And no disrespect to him. It's just sometimes that's how football goes. We didn't even get back, just because we're not old enough, I'm sure there's a lot of older fans that would be like, well, you didn't see this happen in the 70s. You didn't see this happen in the 60s. I totally agree with that. I know that there's players back then that we have no idea what a great game they had, and they don't have the footage and the replays and the HD. It's time. But I'm sure that on that given day, if you're there watching Johnny Unitas play football, it's it might be one of the greatest things you've ever seen.
How do you have this performance in 2017 and people forget about it? How does this not age well?
Right.
In 2017,
Eddie,
we had 4K TV at that time.
Eddie George in '99 is the Super Bowl MVP if they win the game. Great game. It's gone.
Yeah.
It's not gone, but it's just sports rolls you over. Sports is a steamroller. That's why I'm glad we did this show, man. I feel so great about it. I'm glad you agreed to do it with me. Again, this is super week. I don't know how many more I can cram in the rest of the week. I'm going to try to get some more done. I got a couple shows tomorrow night. Got Dan Felton coming back on. Mo, I know you got NFL Draft Capital. You've been busy on that. Up in Flames is still going. You got to turn your hat around and be an NBA analyst. I don't have to do that. So shout out to you for doing that, man. You're doing a great job right now, bud.
Oh yeah, appreciate it. Things are picking up. The trade deadline's coming. Super Bowl week. Then the Super Bowl's going to be over, and we're going to figure out what Aaron Rodgers and everything does. So it's
then you got free agency, you got the NFL draft, and then you got the NBA. You got March Madness, you got the NBA playoffs. I got
to keep a mic around me at all times at this point. I might as well just walk around with my laptop, my Rodecaster, and my mic, because I might need to even drop an episode in the car while I'm driving. It's getting that important in sports at this point.
Hey, you're one of the best at it, man. Thanks for doing this show. Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening. Go to offtheballnetwork.com. Check everything out. Definitely go to Up in Flames. Go to Draft Capital NFL. Check out the stuff that Mo's doing. Believe it or not, he's not just on my show. He's just nice enough to stop by and make it better. But he's got a lot going on his own, and I'm sure he's probably going to be on other shows coming up too. This guy never takes a break, and at the same time, being a father and a member of the armed forces, man. I can't thank you enough. That was awesome, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on, bro.
All right. Shout out to everybody. Be kind to everybody. Enjoy the Super Bowl, and we'll see you soon.